Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat. And this is a show for trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. Because goodness knows they weren't really designed for the world they get. And I was actually, this one's a little different than usual. First of all, I'm a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist. I am also in private practice. And my private practice has a lot of ADHDers in it, all ages, from kids to adults, to some folks who are old enough that I'm not sure exactly why they care if they have ADHD or not, but we do them all pretty much the same. And but I'm also the parent of an ADHD child who is now taller than I am, and I always want to throw this in. We did not know very much about ADHD when I was a young father, and it was really difficult to get any kind of information. And I'm a psychologist. I should have access to all that. But like I keep saying, I made it through an APA. Let's see, it just comes right out. I made it through an American Psychological Association approved residency, or internship, and graduate program without ever once hearing about ADHD. Nothing. I heard nada, zip, dingo. We didn't know a lot back then, honestly. In spite of the fact that it's been around since the 1700s. Okay, it was first described by a Scottish physician. I can't remember his name right now, but it was like in 1737 or something like that. And we have been treating it with stimulant medications since the 1930s. But in the last 20 or so years, there has been a wealth of new research on diagnostics and treatments and so on, and so we're getting better and better at it. It still isn't where it ought to be, I don't think. I talked last week about what a lousy name ADHD is for the disorder. I'm pretty sure no one is actually going to start calling it a dopamine maintenance disorder, but that was a sort of a tongue-in-cheek suggestion. But the real thing that I wanted to talk about this time is something that you don't read a lot about in terms of behaviors that are a lot ADHD. I'm familiar with ADHD kids, the parents telling, oh, he has a horrible time making friends with kids his own age because he's so bossy. But he does pretty well with kids that are younger than he is. And then I combine that with when I'm doing coaching with ADHD executives, a lot of times they're complaining about how many times they've been taken advantage of by employees, and then I was talking to, I have a coach, okay? I have somebody who has a kind of a bigger view of things, a broader understanding of my life sometimes than I do. It's always easier when you're on the outside looking in anyway. But she was talking about ADHD executive coaching, and how one of the problems entrepreneurs have is that they think everybody in the organization has the same agenda that they do, for want of a better word, that they're motivated by the same kinds of things, and that they are therefore likely to make mistakes by making that assumption. That they're going to assume that people are as dedicated to the success of their company as they are, and then are always surprised to find that that isn't the case. Well, that's a oh, by the way, my coach's name is Anne Durand. It's not like she really needs any more advertising, but there it is. And she, was just talking about how hard it is to convince entrepreneurs sometimes that you have two distinct sets of goals. You have the entrepreneur's desires for the company and basically wants it to survive, wants it to do well, is willing to work extra hours, versus an employee who may just want a comfortable paycheck and be able to get home at a reasonable time every night. And weekends free. Okay, that frequently doesn't fit into the ADHDers' mindset and the way they do things. Okay, ADHDers are about 70% of all entrepreneurs, maybe a little more, probably, honestly, a little more, or a good bit more. Okay, the things that make them good entrepreneurs are a willingness to take risks, a tendency to be able to hyper-focus on things they're really interested in, which is usually something about the business, and the fact that they are ready to make quick decisions. I mean, that sometimes is a disadvantage, but sometimes it's an advantage that you can pull the trigger when you need to. And some other folks have to think about it and pummel it to death before they're willing to go with one decision or another. The beauty of that whole thing, and the problem with that whole thing, is that if you are totally devoted to your company and you are not likely to be sensitive to and recognize that people you're looking at hiring may not be as devoted to your company as you are. Matter of fact, it would be pretty surprising if they were, really, but ADHDers seem to have more troubles with that than others. I mean, I have one guy I know really well who's a very successful entrepreneur. He has super ADHD. He barely made it through high school, and he's always talking about, I have this tendency to be taken advantage of by my employees. And he put it down as being, well, because I trust them too much. That's probably part of it, but he trusts them so much because he expects that their goals are the same as his goals. And like I said, I've seen that clinically with kids who assume that other kids are going to want to play the way they want to play, and are surprised and frankly pretty aggressive sometimes when that proves to not be the case. So they don't do well when folks are disagreeing with them. They're likely to get angry and, take their ball and go home kind of thing. Well, if you're an entrepreneur and you start realizing that somebody's not quite measuring up to your expectations, you don't really have the option of taking your ball and go home. It's your dang company, So what do you do about that? What do you do when they're not living up to your expectations? And why do you keep hiring people who don't measure up to your expectations? So, the first thing, the easiest way out of that solution is to be more sensitive to the idea that somebody may be more dedicated to having family time at home than they are to the success of the company. And you need to gauge that, okay? But you need to be sensitive to it, okay? Because the easiest way out of any problem is to stop it before it starts. You know, the easiest way to stop having problem employees is to quit hiring them. Oh, and by the way, my friend, or that is the entrepreneur who makes all the money, he developed this elaborate screening thing that he uses for picking employees. You know, they take all kinds of tests. They have all sorts of test projects that they have to do, and so on, before he'll hire them. Well, my suggestion is that it's not so much the value of any test, any particular test that he's using, as the whole rigorous protocol he makes people go through that cause him to have only the folks who are really dedicated to getting the job with him will complete it. And, you know, that's maybe not the best way to go, but it is a way to go. And, you know, although perhaps the outcomes are not exactly what you would expect, or for the reason you expect, you're still getting the right outcome, okay? By the time you've gone through his whole program, you've got to be dedicated. You know, that there are a bunch of people who would have said, to heck with this, man. This is too much like work. And I'm not gonna do it. It's too much, you know. I'm just applying for a job, not trying to join the priesthood or anything. But anyway, that's his sort of way of handling it. And that's doing something along those lines, or figuring out some way to measure somebody's desire, resilience, not resilience so much, mostly desire, that the way, you know, that figuring out a way to get to that, so know that they're pretty dedicated to your company. And you don't need everybody to be totally dedicated, you know. There's room for some people who are a little more balanced in their lives, and actually they serve as kind of a counterbalance to keep ADHD entrepreneurs a little bit more in line, if you will. ADHDers can be slave drivers, basically. They will push people sometimes, and push their companies, and, you know, there's a lot of success associated with that, and that's great. But not everybody's going to put up with that for an extended period of time. They just aren't. And it's up to you, as an entrepreneur coach, to say, whoa, you know, you need to slow down a little bit. You're not going to last if you keep doing it this way. You got to hold back a little bit, you know, and get a little more balance in your life. And that's one of the things I'm a big proponent of, is that, yeah, it's nice to have a successful company, but you need to have a certain amount of balance in your life, or you are not going to have that successful company for a very long time. Anyway, so it literally, within the last couple of days, it just occurred to me that there's a connection between that little kid who can't get the other kids to play his way, and that entrepreneur who can't get his employees to work as hard as he does, and the same way he does, which I had not made that connection before, but I have now, so I'm expecting that will pop up more and more in my coaching. Okay, so that's me for today. I am Dr. Terry James Gingrass. And my website is terrygingrassphd.com. And, if you have any comments or anything, put them, I don't know where they go, underneath, I think. And especially if you have any questions or anything, because I really would like to know what kind of things you might want to know about that maybe I haven't covered, or you'd like me to cover them in more detail. But I will definitely be looking at that and looking for some, make sure we're kind of connecting in some way. And the other thing is, I'm trying to build up my email list because I've got some projects coming shortly, within the next month or so. We will have some stuff available, and if you'd like to, get some more information about that, just sign up at my website. There's a landing page, and if you sign up, you get a digital copy of my book, Strategic Parenting, which has some information for adults, even if they don't have kids. So that's my freebie to you, and please do sign up. And also, when you're thinking about leaving a little note or something underneath, consider signing up, or what do they call it? I've forgotten. The Facebook's got a name for it, but anyway, just make sure that you get notified that this is coming at you again. Okay, and that's it for me this week. We'll check you later. Remember, we're trying to make the world safe for ADHDers, because they're the folks that think outside the box. Compliant thinkers do not change the world. It's only the outside the box thinkers that really make big changes in the world. Okay, we will catch you next time.